Well, hi everybody. My name is Marko Suvajdzic, and I'm an associate director at Digital Worlds Institute at University of Florida. Since we have, a few people here, I'll talk for a while, then I'll try to get as many questions as possible to make this relevant to what is your interest about art and blockchain. I'll kind of start posing some general questions and answers and talk a little bit about that, but ultimately I want to make this relevant to whatever is your interest. So let me introduce myself. Once again, I'm from University of Florida up in Gainesville. I'm an associate director there of Digital Worlds, and I'm a director of blockchain lab there that is really just opening. It's a brand new thing. A lot of new kind of movement happening in the world of blockchain. And what we're looking to address is a few things that right now I feel bottlenecks in the growth of blockchain technology. As here on a conference, we have, I think, 5,000 people. And with those 5,000 people, I would say half of people have an idea of like, oh, you know what? I kind of like this blockchain thing, and maybe I can do something. Maybe I can sell my art on it, or maybe I can make a little app or something like that. And the conversation stops when it's like, okay, so how do I go about that? Most people don't know. And you're not supposed to know. It's not like that you are a blockchain developer, just as when people wanted to make their websites 20 years ago, it wasn't expected that they would do it. They just needed to find somebody who can do it. Now, in blockchain field, there's really not a lot of developers right now. And those that are any good are all working for different blockchain protocols. In other words, they're all working for Ethereum and Solana and Cardano and so on and so forth. They're not really working on a smaller kind of a layer one apps, so they're not available for you to hire. So that's one of the things that we're looking to address here at University of Florida, of building a cohort of blockchain developers that are capable of working on your projects, that are capable of saying, hey, yes, I can make a smart contract. I can build you an NFT. I can create both the UI interface and whatever is happening in the back end that makes blockchain technology relevant and working for you. So we're building classes right now, both for our own students, and we're also building classes that are professional certificates. So if you yourself are interested in learning a little bit more about blockchain, we'll have classes for you. They're fully online, and you get a certificate of attendance from University of Florida, which is top 5 public university in the United States right now. So, looking to support growth of that field. Also running a couple of accelerators, so people who have their own companies want support, want to move forward, have an organized way of being supported in doing that. Now, today, what I wanted to talk about is blockchain and art. And here we are in Miami. It's Art Basel. It's art everywhere. And it seems like the whole first half of this week has been completely taken over by blockchain technology. We have multiple events all over the place. NFT is kind of like probably the most common word spoken in all of the bars and parties and stuff like that. And it's all the rage. And the world of art is still kind of struggling to figure out exactly what this blockchain thing is, and we should kind of jump on this bandwagon, but we don't really know what are we supposed to be doing, so to say. So today I wanted to kind of do this survey presentation and categorize in which ways art and blockchain interact with each other, right? So when we think there's a huge field of blockchain, huge field of art, how do they interact with each other? What do they have actually in common? And, where are the cross points there? So I'll talk about 3 different things. This is how I categorize this world. There might be different ways to slice the pie, so to say, but I think this is really one of the best ways to think about it. First we have art about blockchain. And I'll go in each one in a little bit more details. Art about blockchain is art that it's a traditional art that might have blockchain for its theme. So it's a painting that depicts something that is related to blockchain. There's quite a few booths here today presenting T-shirts and stuff like that, selling, that are blockchain related. That would be art about blockchain. Then we have blockchain art on the other side of this slide, which is art that uses blockchain as a medium that could not exist, basically, if blockchain did not exist. So blockchain becomes the medium to create this art piece. And then last but not the least is blockchain as means of payments and purchase tracking and crowd financing art. In other words, economics, marketplace. How can we leverage blockchain to actually create a marketplace for art? So these are the three general categories that I was talking about, and then I'll make sure at the end that there is enough time for any questions that you may have, again, so make this relevant to you. Here are some of the examples of art about blockchain. Maybe you heard of artists like Crypto Graffiti. You know, he did this Satoshi Nakamoto little collage. Here we can see this. Here we have, anybody knows this gentleman? Anybody saw him before? It's an interesting story. Anybody here heard of Satoshi Nakamoto? Right? So Satoshi Nakamoto is the pseudonym used by a person or a group of people that created Bitcoin. We never learned the true identity of this person. And for a long time, it was like super interesting for media to try to find who this Satoshi Nakamoto is. So they tried all kinds of stuff. And in one of these research efforts, they came up with a gentleman who is Asian and whose name is Satoshi Nakamoto. And he lived in Palo Alto, so Silicon Valley. Totally makes sense, right? Came on his door, knocked on it. Outside, there's like 50, 100 journalists. And this gentleman opens the door, and he's like, what is going on? And they're like, oh, I want an interview. So he goes, okay, I'll give an interview, whoever buys me free lunch. And literally, I don't know, like ABC News or something like that, buys him free lunch. And he goes to gives an interview, and his interview is like, I have no idea who you are. I have no idea what blockchain is. Thank you for free lunch. And it became such a funny anecdote. It's like a meme almost in itself, that he has become a bit of a mascot now. So he really is Satoshi Nakamoto. That's his real name. And he's a retired programmer who now makes money by touring the world of blockchain conferences like this, and just kind of walking around and being attraction, so to say, right? Due to the media frenzy that surrounded his identity discovery. So in this particular art piece, I don't know how much you can see the little details. They're actually credit cards that are cut up and made into a collage, and then made into to look like Satoshi Nakamoto. So again, this is, Crypto Graffiti is one of the first big artists that kind of launched himself on a NFT scene. And in this case, I mean, it's really interesting. It's a commentary, right? There's credit cards, there's a fake Satoshi Nakamoto, so on and so forth. But again, this is art that has blockchain as a topic. It doesn't require blockchain to exist. It's just a cut up credit cards, right? We could have done that about anything. But this is usually how new technologies get commented on. Here, this is a Bitcoin monument. This is from the bird's point of view, so to say, in the Slovenian city of Kranj. And basically, they had a huge startup there that made a lot of money. Slovenia is a very small country. The whole country has about 2.5 million people. So for them, this big startup was like a huge part of the city revenue. And they donated funds to create this monument in the main city square. And it's this huge multi-ton metal sculpture that is near the courthouse there and has a Bitcoin sign. So once again, this is an example of art about Bitcoin. It's a sculpture that represents Bitcoin or blockchain in some way. It's glorifying its upcoming. And for those of you who lived through the 90s and not being as a kid, so to say, or so older in the audience, you may remember similar things happening with internet, with the whole internet craze in the mid to late 90s, where we had internet art, commentary about internet art, and stuff like that. Now, let's move to more fun topics. Blockchain art. So blockchain art is art that actually uses blockchain as a medium that ultimately would not exist if blockchain did not exist. This is one of my favorite pieces. It's called Plantoid. And in this piece, Primavera de Filippi, the artist who did this, what she did, she created these robotic flowers, or plantoids. And these robotic flowers basically had a light, and they were able to move, and they contained the address, a Bitcoin address. And if you tip it, like you just basically send a couple of Satoshis, everybody knows what a Satoshi is? Okay. Everybody knows what a Bitcoin is. You heard of a Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin today is around $55,000 or something like that, right? So it's not very convenient to say, hey, you owe me 100th of the Bitcoin for this t-shirt or something like that. Like, it doesn't make sense, right? So Bitcoin actually, when it was invented, they knew that this is what's going to happen. And Bitcoin is not intended as the ultimate amounts or coinage, so to say. Satoshi is. Satoshi is 100 millionth of a Bitcoin. So 100 million Satoshis is one Bitcoin. This is actually very convenient because as we are moving up, we're thinking, okay, maybe in the next few months, Bitcoin will be above 100,000. Next cycle, maybe in the next 5 years, Bitcoin will reach million. So when one Bitcoin is 1 million, one Satoshi will be equal to 1 cent, right? So 100 million. So Satoshi will be equal to 1 cent when Bitcoin reaches 1 million. And that becomes then, you know, a currency that we can talk about. It's like, okay, this tomato costs 300 Satoshis instead of $3. That's fine, right? And that will become the currency. I mean, which already exists. It's just that right now we're talking about tens of thousands of Satoshis. We're kind of like in between space. So you tip this plantoid with a few Satoshis, and the flower does a little dance. You can think of it like what the flower does for bees, right? It looks pretty, gives them certain, you know, pollen, gives them something why they should come and help it propagate. So in this case, you tip it, and the flower moves around and does like a little light show with lights, right? And that's kind of like saying thank you for tipping it. And then it has a smart contract that when it reaches a certain amount of money, doesn't matter, let's say $1,000, right, in Satoshis, it transfers it to an artist account that will create another one of these that are similar, which is the way of basically procreating. So this plant now has the capability, this robotic plant has the capability to procreate itself because it literally is collecting tips, and when they reach the amount necessary that whatever artist bid and said, okay, when you reach $1,000, give it to me and I'll make another one very similar to this, right? When that happens, smart contract kicks in, the artist gets the money, and another plantoid is created. And in doing that, basically, we have the situation where this plantoid has kind of its physical body that we're looking at here, and it has kind of like its soul that lives in this, I guess today we talk about metaverse a lot, right? But it lives on blockchain, where there is a blockchain wallet and it's collecting tips, and that soul ultimately is connected to a smart contract that helps it procreate and create new plants. So this is a kind of art that is happening right now. It's a lot of experimental art, it's a lot of conceptual art, and it's a lot of kind of a really neat stuff that we haven't seen before, you know? Like, we have robot plants now that are capable of procreating themselves by being given Bitcoin. That's kind of cool. This is a game that I have made at the Digital Worlds Institute at University of Florida a couple of years ago. What we did, we wanted to celebrate the life and work of Leonardo da Vinci. It was 500 years of his death. And we made this gamified app that we used at a time blockchain called Steam. I don't know, maybe you heard of Steam blockchain. What is unique about Steam is that it's the kind of blockchain that is built to support social interactions, where basically, think of it where, they have, instead of YouTube, they have DTube. And on DTube, when you post a video, you get a little bit of steam. When somebody likes your video, both you as an author and the person liking gets a little bit of steam. So every action is rewarded by a little bit of steam coin, which ultimately triggers inflation, right? So every time you do this, a new amount of coins are minted and given to you. So what happens is, yes, the supply of steam keeps getting bigger, but it gets bigger proportional to human activity. So more activity there is on the network, more coins are there, and the value of all those coins are going up. It's a really interesting way of governance, of organizing what is value and how do we value people's activity. And ultimately, all the protocols that are here today, from, again, Cardano, Algorand, Solana, so on and so forth, they're all fighting for your time, for your attention, for your development. Because the winner will be the platform that has the best ecosystem. Whoever has all the developers, whoever can say, oh, we have most apps running on our platform, will be the winner. And right now, we have this kind of odd situation where Ethereum is kind of a de facto standard. Everybody builds on Ethereum. Everything is built on Ethereum, except that transactions are really slow and it costs an arm and a leg. So it's really not very convenient at all, but they have the developers and they have all the apps and it's just kind of easy to do. So most people now have a situation where it's like, okay, I'm either going to build on Ethereum and suffer, or I'm going to choose one of these up-and-coming technologies like Algorand or Cardano that are super awesome, but I'll be a little bit alone and I don't know if I'm ready to be a trailblazer. I just learned about this stuff, right? So there is a lot of competition happening in this world of smart contracts, NFTs, and things like that. So in this particular case, we created an online game which is really kind of a trivia question in which you answer questions and then you get, it's kind of like you keep collecting parts of his inventions, and when you get these parts, you collect the invention, you can submit it for prizes. It was primarily towards students. So it was like how to motivate students to do something. Well, number one, access is free. Number two, everything that they do, they get rewarded in Steam blockchain. And number four, when they collect enough correct answers, they can kind of submit them for prizes. And then at the end of a 3 months promotional period, we had Nintendo Switch and PlayStation and stuff like that giving out to students based on their answers. But ultimately, looking to create the marketplace for them to keep exchanging their prizes and create this hype, if I could use that word, to attract students to use this. And in order to use it, they have to onboard. We were able to secure some sponsorships from Steam Foundation, so everybody got their Steam wallets. They were pre-populated with a couple of Steams, just enough to function. But it's all about onboarding new users, because a lot of people know about crypto, a lot of people know about blockchain, but not a lot of people have their wallet, right? Any wallet. So what I found is that the biggest thing to onboard somebody is to say, oh, you don't own any crypto? I'm like, no. Okay, install the wallet. Like, what is that? Go install Bread, BRD, one of the popular wallets. There are many, right? And you just literally, for 5 minutes, help them install their wallet and send them $5 worth of Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever, right? And that magic, when they're just going to go, oh, and this is real? And it's like, yeah, you have it now. Oh, keep it $5. No, it's my gift. It's you, keep your $5 and give it to somebody else. That is the magic of what, after that, they can check it out and go, oh, it went up. Maybe I'll put some more money. Maybe I'll learn about this. Maybe I'll actually start developing. And ultimately, that is the goal, right? I mean, it's awesome to invest and make money, but ultimately, none of it is going to be worth anything unless we start building with it and we have proof of use, so to say, for this technology. Here's just another screenshot of what we were doing here with Discover Da Vinci. It was really neat. Once you put together his invention, we had a kind of an AR thing where you could see this 3D piece in augmented reality and walk around and take it apart and stuff like that. We worked on it for about 4 to 5 months, and we had an incredible team. And it was a kind of a great success. Looking forward to doing the second part of this project. Now, some other blockchain art. Maybe some of the most well-known things are CryptoKitties. Now probably, CryptoKitties, or we have now CryptoPunks. All very similar, to be honest. And, it's kind of interesting. It's a little picture that you have ownership of on blockchain, which is really, on one hand, super interesting. On the other hand, I have a lot of people, they're like, well, wait a second, what does that mean? But I can just screenshot it. It's like, yep, you can just screenshot it. It's like, well, what do I own? It's like, literally what you own is this one line of data that says you are the rightful owner of this little Dracula CryptoKitty. And it's like, well, what does that mean? I just screenshot it. It's like, yes, of course. Just as you can screenshot Mona Lisa and you can have it in your screensaver, but it doesn't mean you own it. It doesn't mean that if it changes hands again, it gets sold, that you're going to get any money out of it. You just have a copy of it. So here, in a similar way, what's happening is yeah, you can have a copy of it, but you're not the rightful owner, meaning you cannot sell it. You cannot trade it. And that's what really blockchain is allowing for, is that speed at which we can trade. I can buy, I can sell this, I can auction it off probably in a matter of minutes, depending on what kind of price do I want to get. But if I go to an open marketplace, I can offer it, sell it very, very fast. So this is really kind of a unique way of doing things. Will this kind of art survive? I don't know, honestly, because there's a lot of challenges when we talk about NFTs that are connected to physical world things. Because, okay, so now I have a painting and I have an NFT of it. Sure, but we still exist completely in this physical world of this painting exists, who owns it, where is the contract? Yeah, you can wave your little NFT, but do you actually own it? Actually, do you have it in your possession? Or is it in a museum? Is it in a bank? So all these things still remain as questions, and it's not 100% clear to me, will NFTs survive in the format of being connected to physical goods? I think that a huge future that is happening with NFTs is going to be fully digital. Things like video games. I make video games. So if I have a sword in one game that I just won, and it's an amazing sword, man, it would be kind of cool if I could have that sword, export it, and then import it into another game, because I really like that sword. Well, how do you do that? NFTs will allow for that. So gaming protocols will be created. There will probably be multiple protocols for sharing NFTs between the games. And this, again, we're starting to come to that terminology of metaverse, right? Where metaverse really will be kind of a shared reality, shared universe across many silos. Many different games would be willing to exchange assets between each other, and NFT will be the basics of that. Similar thing for virtual reality, similar thing for augmented reality. Blockchain is going to be huge. NFTs are going to be huge in the world of digital, where everything happens fully in the digital world. As soon as we move into the physical world, we have a problem of oracles. How many of you have heard of a word oracles as it applies to blockchain? We have one person, right? So few people. So oracles, so basically what happens, we talk about, oh yeah, blockchain is immutable, you cannot hack it, stuff like that. I'm gonna track something. Today we know that, let's say, when you build an airplane, about 3%, this is kind of a scary piece of statistics next time you get on a plane, about 3% of the parts on every airplane are estimated to be counterfeit. In other words, the same thing happens to you when you buy on Amazon and it's made in China and it's really not that original item that you bought, be it a t-shirt or something like that. It's just really well done counterfeit. 3% of an airplane that we're flying on is counterfeit. They just can't figure it out, right? So we're talking about, all right, let's have a blockchain, let's register everything, we can keep track of it. Yeah, that sounds great, but who enters this on a blockchain? I mean, it's a human looking at something and saying, yeah, this looks good. So oracles are points where blockchain relates to real world. And they're super important because that's a weak point, right? Like, blockchain will be very good at keeping whatever you store on it. But what you store on it doesn't depend on blockchain. It depends on oracles. It is points of who feeds this data onto the blockchain. And that can be faked. So that's a super weak link. And every time I work on a project that connects real world with blockchain, there are a lot of potential weak points there. And we'll see how that unfolds. This is a project that actually I worked on. It's interesting. I put it as a comparison between two different eras. Here is, 2017, and then rewind 20 years. 97, I was working on a project called Virtual Pets. We had like artificial intelligence, and you were able to, they grow by 1 pixel every day. You train them, they can learn tricks. You can mate them, and you get puppies or kitties, and they have traces of their parents and stuff like that. At the time, we actually literally had online kennels. People were charging money for making, breeding your cats and stuff like that. But what we did not have blockchain. And how would that fit? Well, it will fit perfectly because what happened back in the day, there were literally kennels, trainers. I have like a small puppy, and I would upload it, just like a floppy disk thing. I will upload it through modem to this site, and they will train my dog. And they will train it for a few days and charge me money. And then they will, post the basically data file for me to download, and I will have my dog back that knows a few tricks. Except that at this moment, they had that file, and they can send it to me to download, or if they really want it, they could create infinite amount of copies of this particular virtual pet and sell it if they wanted to. With blockchain, you cannot, because each one is unique, and the software will not accept it unless it has the right, basically, clearance, if you can put it that way, right? So that's where NFTs would start working. It's like, oh, no, I create my puppy, that becomes an NFT. I work on it, and I can send it to somebody, and I can get it back, but they cannot make multiple copies of it. They can, but only one, I have the ownership, and no one else can install it, right? And it gives that entity that non-fungibility. How many of you know what non-fungible means? Or fungible? Okay, we have a few hands. So it's kind of a relatively simple concept, but I think often we make it too complicated. Fungible means exchangeable, one for another. So we have 2 bars of gold, and you want a bar of gold, I'll give you this one or this one, and you really don't care which one it is. It's fungible. They're interchangeable. Non-fungible means that something is unique, right? You have 2 artists here. Well, if you say, I want an artist, you get either one. No, you want that particular artist. Or if I give my code a code check, I get my NFT. It's non-fungible token. It's not like, oh, when I come back, just give me a code. Well, no, I want my specific code. So non-fungible means non-interchangeable. It's unique, and we're tracking that particular unique item. Last but not the least, we have blockchain-facilitated art economy and the different ways in which blockchain will facilitate this growth. So we have 3 things: driving digital art sales up through digital scarcity, democratizing fine art investments, and improving provenance and reducing art forgery. Here's some quick data between galleries, auction houses, intermediaries. A lot of these people are here for Art Basel. And what's interesting is, some years ago, just 2017, this is the last top of the hype wave, most auction houses were considering using blockchain in the future. Everybody else was still kind of waiting to see what happens. But auction houses are pretty much, hey, we don't care. Whatever format of money you want to give us, that's great. And let's be clear, if I'm selling you art that is in millions of dollars, I probably don't really care where your money comes from, right? Like, you know, you want to give me $1 million for my Van Gogh? Great, here. Oh, and you have Bitcoin? Okay. I don't really care who you are. I don't really care where you got your Bitcoin. I don't know, I don't care how did you get money to get your Bitcoin, right? It's not coming from Panama, it's not coming from Malta, it's not coming from United States, it's just coming from a digital wallet. And you just happen to have a whole lot of money that you put on Bitcoin. And you want to buy $1 million Van Gogh. Sure, here's your Van Gogh. And then you can sell it. And now when you sell it, you can get your money back and you pay your 20% taxes, and now you have 80% of your $1 million in cash, in United States, regardless from where that money came from. Such kind of food of thought for how art industry works on the grand scale when we get to the really expensive pieces. Another thing that what's happening is, let me see, democratizing fine art investment. What that means is, now with a smart contract, what we can do is, you know, I might not be able to afford a Van Gogh, like a whole one, but I may be able to say, you know what, I really think this piece is gonna go up in value. I wanna invest in it. So each piece can now become like a company, an entity, and you can have stock. So I can buy 5% of a particular painting, so when that painting gets resold, I get 5% of the proceeds. So now we can all become fine art investors because certain fine art will now have smart contracts attached to it, and you can just buy micro ownership. You can own 1%, 5%, 30%, whatever, and it's like owning stock in Apple, Microsoft, or in a Van Gogh's painting. It doesn't matter. It's just owning percentage of asset that may go up in value. Another graphic that you might find of interest. And the last thing is the art providence, and I kind of talked about it a little bit, right? Which, there's a big promise, again, of blockchain providing provenance and immutability and trustless consensus on, oh, is this real or is this not? But on one hand, yes, absolutely. But on the other hand, as soon as I talked about it, as soon as we have this link to the physical world, that becomes a weak link. And yeah, you can say, I own this, but I mean, if the physical piece is forged and swapped on you, you will not know any difference, right? So now we're fighting it by like some luxury brands like, you know, Gucci and Prada and stuff like that are putting the little sensors in their items. So if you have a bag that costs $15,000, there's like a little sensor that is registered on blockchain, and when you buy it, you get basically the NFT ownership of this bag, Louis Vuitton bag, and I have an NFT of it. And if somebody steals it and tries to sell it, well, they can, but they cannot sell the rightful ownership of it, so to say. So it's trying again to address this copycat market. It's not perfect, and I think it's going to work a whole lot better with the digital world. So when you have digital 3D Louis Vuitton bag, then you won't be able to fake it at all anymore. There will be no second-hand market for just a 3D model of it that is not real. So in the metaverse, blockchain will work 100%. In this world, when we have to correlate with the physical world, there will be some weak links always. So this brings me to the end of my presentation. I think we have a couple of minutes for any questions if you guys have it. Thank you. Any questions by any chance? Anybody? Art, blockchain, NFTs? All right, thank you.
Thank you. So, who's got friends or family who think you're kind of crazy for being here? Come on, raise your hands, raise your hands. People who didn't raise their hands have no friends. I just love the fact that University of Florida, I just love the fact that University of Florida has a program dedicated to this. I mean, it really, look, you know, this whole thing starts off with digital art, and now they're essentially creating a titling system for expensive handbags. You know, this goes so far beyond the way people are imagining it today, and we are all at the forefront. And the world doesn't even know that these changes are taking place. And now the University of Florida is creating a program, and this is like, for those of you who don't know University of Florida, it's like a really well-respected university in this country. I mean, the whole country knows University of Florida. So the next time one of your friends or family says, oh, you're crazy, you might want to point out that you saw a presentation from the director of digital arts at University of Florida about their new blockchain program, and you talked about the new degrees that are being offered. You did?
Yeah, I did a little bit.
I had to step out for a minute. Just talk a little bit about that again.
Yeah, I talked a little bit about that. So we're offering now both graduate and undergraduate certificates in blockchain. We're working on putting it completely online, and also professional certificates. So if you don't want to be a registered student and get credits and stuff like that, but you want to learn about this, we'll have online offerings both on more introductory level, like what is blockchain and how do you use it, to more development level of like, how do I build a smart contract? How do I mint an NFT? And things like that, that you can do this kind of like a boot camp style 4 to 6 weeks classes online on your own time.
So how many of us here have an idea for some sort of blockchain-based business, but we don't necessarily know how to put our fingers on the keyboard and make it happen, right? And now you're going to be able to find someone who has a legitimate certificate or a legitimate 4-year degree from a legitimate university. And that doesn't guarantee they're not going to be a total flake, right? But it gives you some sense that this is a person who takes this seriously, who at least has some level of commitment to what they're doing. And to me, that's going to start to really blow up the opportunities in a good way. Because when you know where you can find professional people to do the work, it opens it up to all kinds of creative people like us who might not have the technical skills to make it happen. So I'm really excited about this. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.